time it is. Marvin Devine, Huber, Axel, and you know how we do. Yeah, I got the juice. Whip game cool, make them look like cool. Always play it cool, that's the biggest rule. Forget what they doing, keep on doing. I've been making loot since like 22. Ask me how I made it right here in the booth. I'm always pursued cause of what I pursue. That's greatness, yeah, I gotta make it, I got things to lose. Boy, wanna get in my groove, but you can't get in my groove. Me, XL, and Huber, way too fireable. When this joint drop, better call the troops. And when you hear the drop, better raise the roof. Better raise the roof. You already know what happens when we link up. Let's go. Yeah.
Know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cody's brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cody's brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How are you? Welcome back to Bella's Hope for Healing, formerly known as Sisters Against Kidney Disease. I'm your host, Audrey Bella Langston, and have I got a great show for you tonight. But first and always, I want to give thanks to all my faithful viewers. And I want to welcome those who it may be your first time joining my show. Thank you so much. And also, I want to say happy birthday to anyone who is celebrating theirs today. I hope you had a great day, and I hope you got a great weekend in store. As you guys all know, this show is designed to educate, enlighten, and advocate. I'm a supporter of those that are in need of that life-saving organ. So please, please, please share the good news with everyone else. Smash, that's right, bam, smash that like button, guys, because you just never know whose life that you're going to be able to bless, that we'll all be able to bless. Also, that comment box is accessible to you because I want you to share your thoughts and your questions and your comments and your opinions even. As always, we will do that respectfully, but we want you to do that. I want you to engage in this show. That's the only way we're going to know how you feel. If you have anything that you may be questionable about, let me know. Amen. So listen, I'm going to go into it in the introduction of my guest, but a few things I want to say before we do that. Good evening, Lisa Baxter. I just want to add this little nugget. Excuse me, because that's why I'm wearing red tonight. We are in representation tonight of a heart transplant recipient. And our heart is the second most vital organ in our body. Our brain is the first. But what our heart does that's so special, aside from sending blood throughout our body, is that it holds, guys, those things like our joys, our pains, our sadness, our fears, and of course, it even holds our sins, okay? But what we cannot do, we can deal with all of those other things, but what we cannot do is live without our heart because it's so critical that we take good care of it. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight and my guest journey. So, my guest tonight resides right here where I do in Tampa, Florida. He is 41 years of age, single, and he is a 14-year recipient of a heart transplant. He's also a volunteer with LifeLink, as myself and many others that are probably are guests on the tonight with us. But after serving 4 years in the United States Navy, Andrew, which is his name, received an honorable discharge. And on a summer day in 1995, at the young age of 26 years old, he went to the local DMV to renew his driver's license. And while he was there, he was asked if he wanted to be an organ donor. That's generally what they do. He said yes. Yes, absolutely. But little did he know that 12 years later, he would be in need of a life-saving heart transplant. This is where his journey begins. Please give a warm welcome to my guest, Andrew Spear. Good evening, Andrew. How are you?
Good evening, Bella. How's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and being willing to do that. I know you got a lot going on in your life right now, so I'm gonna just go right in. Everyone is jumping in, welcoming you for being here. There's Debbie saying hello. So I just want to start out with my first question because we got a lot to talk about.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Can you, I'll use the term paint a picture for us about how, or I should say, what led up to your need for a heart transplant?
So what led to my journey to transplant was that after I got out of the Navy and right before I got out, I received a smallpox inoculation, which after time affected my heart. So after some time was going by, it finally got to the point where in 2005 fall is when I started having some symptoms. And then Super Bowl Sunday of 2006, I had to go to the hospital and because I was not feeling good. And at that point, that's when everything started. I had a cardiologist come in and take care of me. So after a year of being taken care of by the cardiologist, he did everything possible, drug wise, therapy wise, and at after a year, he's like, "You need a transplant." So he sent me up to LifeLink to be evaluated for a heart transplant.
Okay. Wow. So can you tell us, um, so of course, symptoms are always going to vary and be different from people dealing with kidney issues versus liver, lungs. What type of symptoms were you having that led you to that were really evidently of some great detriment, that you knew something was wrong and had to go to the hospital? Because I think what happens with a lot of people is they kind of downplay potential chest pains or anything. So I'd like for you to share that. What type of consistent symptoms, or if they were consistent, were you having?
Um, so in 2005, I started having like being one, kind of tired, and then two, a cough. And later on, when I was working, I would cough, and I noticed I would cough up some blood. So I knew something wasn't quite right, but I just didn't know the severity of it at that time, and kind of passed a little bit off. Um, but come Super Bowl Sunday, it all came to a head, and um, pretty much took me down. And so we were 5 hours in the ICU, and then I was up in intensive care after that. So
Okay. And were you experiencing, because I know a few things that are pretty consistent with some potential heart problems, are things like also extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, and even for many people, pain in the left arm that travels upward. Were you having anything like that?
yeah, after um, after so from that day in the hospital visit there, Super Bowl Sunday, I got an AICD put in, and so I had that all the way up to the transplant, and so uh, yeah, the symptoms got a little worse as I started getting sicker, and shortness of breath, couldn't walk too far. I would have to use the electric cart at Walmart, and got quite a few stares, like, because at the time I was only 26, and so people see you on there and they go, "What's wrong with you?" Sometimes that's what society does, is question everything. So, but yeah, I just got worse and worse and worse, and appetite was going away. I just remember like eating a little bit of food, every day, and that was it. And got to the point where even looking at food, I would get sick to my stomach. So I couldn't wait to get the transplant so I could feel better, feel more like a human being again.
So you mentioned that the cardiologist, after all the testing and everything that's done. I know the process for transplantation can be different, especially it can vary from state to state even. He told you that you needed to get with Lifelink, I believe you said, about getting, I'm assuming, on the list. And so that's what I wanted to touch on too. How exactly, what is the protocol for being placed on the heart transplant list as far as, the like the statutes, so to speak? I know, like for kidney, you have to be stage 5, renal disease to get to be put on the transplant waiting list, and that list averages. And again, this is state. I'm from Illinois,
Right.
and that's where I received mine. At that time, it was 5 to 6 years.
Oof.
That was the minimum for a deceased donor kidney. Now, also with heart, there is no living donor. So unfortunately, that to me is one of the saddest things, everybody, about not getting the transplant itself. That's a blessing, but that somebody has to lose their life, definitely, in order for Andrew and others who need a heart to have life. So can you kind of explain how that works?
So, and you get worked up, all the testing gets done, all kinds of testing. They get all the results. The doctors go to a board. They confer with everyone. They go over my case and look at everything, and then the board decides at that point whether to put you on the transplant list or not. So they see how sick you are and how much of a need and everything. And so the first time around, I was really sick, so they convened and saw how bad I was. So it didn't take long for them to say, okay, he's accepted. Once that exception is done, then you move on and you get some more testing done to finalize everything. Because Lifelink will need some serology lab work, so they could match the blood and tissue typing from your donor to the recipient better, and everything like that. So once all that's done, then you get on the list, and then it's a wait. They'll tell you, it could be quite some time. At the time it was 2 months, but I was pretty high on the list. The list back then is different from today. They revamped it, but back then I was a status 1B, which was I need a heart really bad. But the B part was I was at home on a self-pumping machine that provided medication to keep my heart strong. And otherwise, if not that, then you're in the hospital. In the hospital, you're 1A, you're on the very top. So, but this time around, I'm back on the list, and due to vasculopathy, and so I'm a status 4. They have 1 through 7 now, and the 7 is just that you're inactive. If you get a cold or the flu or any sickness or ailments like that, they can temporarily pause you too. So when you get better, because you can't go in a transplant being sick with something, that's probably true with all other transplants.
To jump in for a second, because you made
Sure.
a few points that were very interesting. Now, I did a little research too, and you did mention a word that I was going to ask about. So there are status levels, I'm assuming, for levels, of heart transplant. And if I remember correctly, it's your level of health. Like you
Yeah.
said, you were really sick. And so you were moved and bumped up to, like, in other words, major need for a transplant. But also, you mentioned, and I was going to get to that, which I wanted the audience to know. You've had your heart now for, I believe it's 14 years, correct?
Yes, 14 plus years.
14 plus, right. Now you have developed what's called vasculopathy. So what I'd like for you to do, if you don't mind, is kind of tell, because everybody's not going to know those terms, you know what I mean,
Right.
what that is. And I apologize if this sounds like a lot, but also what is the expectancy of a heart transplant?
So, um, after 14 plus years, um, I I'm back on the list due to vasculopathy. Basically, what happened is um, they found out that I had a high level of DSAs, which is donor specific antibodies. And unfortunately, those start trying to attack your body tissue because they see it as an enemy. And vice versa, my body tries to counteract the new tissue. That's why we're on all the anti-rejection drugs to keep that fight down. And so the DSAs did damage with the arteries around the heart and caused in layman terms, they told me, like lumpy and bumpy. So like you got a nice clear blood vessel, but you have these little bumps in them all over inside. And what happens is between those bumps, you could get the plaque build up in the middle, between. And so it makes the plaque build up much more. So they, have me on medication to keep that down. But the damage has been done. We've been doing therapy work to squash it, but it's now gone to the point where I'm, showing the signs of heart failure. So that's when they said, okay, it's time to get you back on the list.
Okay. So do you actually, Andrew, feel any different? In other words, any of the symptoms that you were feeling that led into knowing that you had heart failure, or is it just them knowing that it's specifically based on possibly your lab work?
Yeah, let's see, that was back in April, May, somewhere, a couple months back. I was sick, and when I was in the hospital, they do the lab work, they do all echoes, they do chest x-rays, all this stuff.
Mhm.
And from all that, they could see that I started showing signs of heart failure, and that's what triggered them to kick into gear and say, okay, let's get you on the list.
Okay. Okay. But you're not as high, I'm assuming, as you were initially on that list. You know what I
Right.
mean? That as a like major priority right now.
So due to vasculopathy, Munis has redone the list. So number one's on the top and seven's on the bottom. And so I'm at 4, status 4. So I'm up near the top, but the sicker people are ahead of me.
Right.
And because they always want to get the more sicker you are, for the heart. So it will be a much longer wait for me. So they said it could be a year or more maybe, but so we'll see, because once you're on the list and hearts become available, it depends on who's in front of you. Maybe the people in front of you don't match as well and they go down and get to me. Who knows? But I knew, always in the back of my mind, had if I had to get back on the list, I was getting my mind ready for that, being post transplant.
So I'm sorry.
Because they said the average was 10 years, but I know some people, well, me and you know, a guy in our support group, he's 34 years now, with
Who's
the heart
that? Craig?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Guys,
it all depends. I mean, if everything's good, you could have long years. There's a lot of people I've seen with up to 30 and stuff. But unfortunately, with me, the DSAs were out of control, and by the time they found out what was going on, and by the time they found out, the damage was done already. So
also, isn't there, I read about, I don't know if you know anything about it, but they actually have also artificial hearts. Maybe were you talked to about that? It would seem it's a temporary, I don't know if that's a temporary thing or permanent.
You're talking about the VADs, ventricular assisted device.
Assisted device. Okay, that's a VAD. Okay.
VAD. So, I guess if I get really bad, they could do that this time around. The last time around, I was too sick for that, so I'd never got to that point. But hopefully this time around, the same thing. I don't really need it, hopefully. So we shall see, as time goes on, if I need one or not.
Okay. So tell me about if you had I call it privilege and honor of ever meeting the donor family of who you got your heart from.
So yeah, I that's one of the things as a recipient, you always want to, try to connect to the donor family. And at the beginning, I was told you may or may not hear from them, but you're always send out a thank you letter. And it's one of the hardest things to do because, they have a loved one that, has something has happened to them. But LifeLink has material that helped me create one. And so I did that 2 months afterwards. And then my donor family did respond, and I got her. So I did that in June of 2007. And then I heard back from them February of 2008. So um, I was kind of excited to hear from the donor family, and so then another wait came to. I was waiting to hear from them to say, "Hey, we want to meet you," because they're the one that dealt with a loss. So um, I felt like they have to ask first. So, but so 6.5 years went by, and then I finally broke the ice in a Christmas letter and asked them, "Do you want me? Do you want to meet me?" And so that was December of 13, I think it was. Yeah, December 2013, and then I heard from them. We talked to each other like February 7th of 2014.
Wow. So that must have been really exciting. I mean, obviously I've never witnessed a heart transplant encounter personally with anybody. So I always see in the movies, sometimes how we go by that, when someone has acquired the heart of someone and they do get to meet the family. In fact, I actually, though, saw a live video on YouTube about this too. And the woman was getting married, the mom. She lost her 19-year-old son in a car accident.
Hmm.
And she was getting married a few years down the line. And they did an announcement right before she and her husband were about to do their first dance. And they told her they had a surprise for her. And the young man, who was another younger guy, was the one who got the heart of her son, and they told her he was there, and I was sitting there snotting because that was just the most beautiful thing to me. And
Yeah.
and she, someone, they had the stethoscope, and she listened to her son's heart beating. Her bouquet was made with her son's pictures. It was just fabulous. And so I've seen that displayed like that in a lot of movies. And was that kind of what happened with you too? Did she actually listen to your heart?
Yes. So my donor mom. Um, so my donor at the time of the accident um, had a 4 month 4 month old baby, and so when I met, she was what, 7 at the time. So she was much aware of what was going on. She's been told, and she's been, getting raised by her grandparents, and so they they were also active with LifeLink volunteering and stuff. So um, they were at the hospital one day, and a doctor gave them a stethoscope. And so they kept that stethoscope. So when they did meet me, they had one ready. And so when I was there visiting, um, they were like, "Can we hear the heartbeat?" And I said, "Sure, of course you can." And it was a very bittersweet moment because they could finally hear um, the heartbeat again, and so it's always um, hard for everyone, bittersweet, and very emotional event.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can imagine. And here's another question I want to ask you, which I always thought this was pretty cool whenever I would hear this. Um, it's been said in a small percentage of people who have had heart transplants that they can actually take on possibly the personality or a little bit of it or attributes of the donor. Like, for instance, I've heard one story where the recipient was not an instrumental person, didn't play instruments, and the donor was I don't know, I remember if it was a pianist or a guitar player. All of a sudden, this person just naturally fell into that gift, and that is deep, that is intense. And I love the idea of that. I think because of the fact, like I shared in the beginning of the intro, the heart itself, it just holds so much, aside from what it aside from what it does in our body, its function. And I just love the idea of that, as long as it's a good attribute. But did
Right.
you feel did you feel any different as far as the things you appreciate about life? Anything that you felt you started to enjoy that maybe you weren't into before?
Yeah, there's some of that, and I've doctors will say your heart's a muscle, and because it's a muscle, it doesn't store any things, because we use heart as you know for the many different things, like you said in the beginning. But as people, we always say, you're in my heart and all that stuff. So, but food cravings and stuff like that, I didn't really have anything. Um, the only thing that is funny is that I always didn't like country music as much. I like certain stuff, but after the transplant, um, I just started enjoying country music because, well, one, it was right there on the hospital TV. You go through the channels and it's right there. So I was, into that,
Mhm.
but that has kind of gone away a little bit. But, you know, it might have been more of being on the drugs post transplant, especially the one called prednisone,
Oh yeah.
um, and cravings. Maybe prednisone probably holds a little bit of the changing of cravings. For it's probably because of that. When I was back home, I was at a Walmart, and I got a pound and a quarter bag of M&Ms, and went home and started doing something, and I was just having a few out of the bag, and before I knew it, the bag was empty. I was just eating, and I go, oh my god, I just ate a quarter pound of M&Ms. So that was the prednisone, because you just get eating cravings,
Yeah.
or what you call the roid rage. All of a sudden something gets under your skin and you kind of blow up,
Mm.
um, and which is kind of bad, because whoever's near you, they get that, see that right, face to face. But as the prednisone goes down, all that starts going away. But
Mhm.
for me, I don't think I picked up anything from my donor.
Had you
Um,
actually asked his mom about any of his personal likes,
it,
dislikes? Yeah.
my donor was a female.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
Mhm.
that's okay. Um, but she she did love fast cars,
Mm,
and and at the time I was owning, Camaros, so which is a fast car. So, when I found that out, I was kind of like, "Oh my gosh, this is pretty cool." She like, fast cars. I drive a fast car,
mhm,
and so I'm like, so she's probably, my guardian angel whenever I'm in my, I
mhm,
have a different car now,
mhm.
um, but yeah, it was pretty cool to hear,
Yeah, yeah,
you
I'm
know,
sure.
that we
Yeah,
shared something like that.
that's so, yeah, that is really cool. One thing I wanted to ask, I'm going to backtrack a bit because I, is the time length of the actual heart transplant procedure. How long does that roughly take? I'm sure that's probably something that can vary. Like most surgeries, it probably doesn't even matter which organ. But I think I've read that heart transplants take a little bit longer and obviously are a little bit more invasive, because they're actually opening the chest. And tell us about your recovery time and how that went for you.
So yeah, the heart transplant surgery, I want to say 10 to up 12, 10 to 12 hours, depending on, you know, what's going on. Um, they got me, so the day of my surgery, they took me back on, 4 p.m. And while I was in the little room waiting to go in the OR, I did see um, the organ coming through the door in the igloo box. And I'm like, oh, there's my heart. So
Yeah,
I
it's
was like,
dear.
so I'm like, oh, it's gonna be pretty soon. So after a while, they took me in, got me all prepared, and I don't. The last thing I remember is the anesthesiologist going, um, count to four or something like, and it was like one,
One,
two,
two.
three, and then after that it was darkness. It was like boom out, and um, and then the next thing I'm waking up, back in um the hospital room I was in to begin with, and well, actually, when I woke up, I could only hear stuff because being under all the medication, it was like looking into fog in front of me, so I couldn't really see anything. Everything was super blurred or something like that. And but after a while, the vision, cleared up, and then it wasn't long after that they were getting me out of the bed and into the chair next to the hospital bed, and I was like, "Oh, this is okay. I could do that." But I did one little twitch, and I was like, "Yeah, it's gonna take me all day because they, go from right here where your bone is all the way down to your sternum, so all the rib cage, they cut and they open it up, and then you have your heart right there in your chest. So they go in and they leave a lot of the top of the heart where you got all the um big the all your bigger veins and arteries that come to the heart. So they have a area where they cut, and then they take out your old heart, and when they do this, you're on, the life support, heart and lung machine and everything. So basically, at that point, you're basically clinically dead because you're on a machine. And if that machine stops, that's it.
Yeah.
So they get that out, and then they get the donor heart in, and then they have to sew it all back in. And that's what takes a lot of the time, is this intricate of sewing the two tissues back together. And then once that's all done, get the heart going, and get the blood flowing and everything like that. So it's very intricate and very long surgery. And then once they're done, then they put the chest bones back together. And then what they use on me, it looks like on bread, the little tie wraps. So it's like they put it around and then they twist it, and they go all the way, each rib down. So whenever I get an X-ray, or they have equipment so they could see it on the screen, I call it football stitching, because it looks just like a little lines all the way down. So, but yeah, and then it takes 2 months for the chest to fully heal, because it's got to mend back together. And so you can't drive, you can't sit in a front seat where the airbag is, because the airbag could hit your chest and cause it to cave in, So you have to ride in the back seat, can't drive, which is the most horrible part after the transplant. So.
So there's a question. Wow. Okay. So wow, that's deep. I'm going to take this question, and I'll say what I was going to say. From
Exactly.
April. Hi, April. Can you be on more than one list for a heart transplant?
So with Tampa General, no. Tampa General has a policy. If you're on their list, you're on their list. Other hospitals or other transplant centers allow you to be on 2 different ones. But Tampa General Hospital, if you go on another list, they will say, see ya, because they dedicate so much time and energy with you. And also, Tampa General on the west coast of Florida, they're the first hospital to do transplants. So they're a very, very established transplant center pretty much in the whole state. So if you go to another transplant center, it's somewhat, I guess they don't take that kindly, because we're well established, but why do you want to go on, like over up to Shands, or, over to Orlando, or up to Jacksonville, or something like that. But yeah, for here, it's just Tampa General. But that's a good question.
That's a great question, April. Thank you. And I totally get it with that, because based on all the intensity and all that's involved with the heart transplant, and like you said, the time factor, and the dealing with the teams, and it's so intricate, and it's not like in regard to a kidney, that is the major list for kidneys. And so we don't have that same criteria where you can't get listed at other places. But I know for me, if I were in need of a heart transplant, I want to go to at least the top 3, for that. And like you said, TGH is definitely one of them. And guys, I actually got to meet the doctor that did the very first heart transplant there, Dr. Vijay, who was just this little guy, this sweetheart. He's just this bundle of a sense of humor. And, and it's just so amazing, even, being able to shake his hand. I mean, that man has made history, and just to be in that OR and what those doctors do for so detailed and intricate and concise, especially transitioning you from life to death and then back to life again. That's deep. Somebody earlier even said something about that's deep. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is it's just so deep. It really is. And it's just such a miracle to me to hey OJ, a miracle to just be able to witness. And I know that was a heck of a journey for you. But were you the first time around, were you at all nervous or i.e. afraid? And as opposed to this time, you're seasoned, you know what to do, you know what you're going to be dealing with. How do you feel about that, Andrew?
So the first time around, I did not feel afraid, because at one point before all of it, I kind of, I was sick of being sick. So I pretty much, in my room at, one night or whatever, and I just looked up and said, all right, you're in control. Whatever happens, happens. And I said, either two things happen. I get the transplant and I live and do amazing things, or it's my time and, and whatnot. So I basically lifted that weight off my shoulders and put it somewhere else. And ever since that point, I've never really been afraid of passing on. It's kind of really hard to explain it, because it's something that you have to experience personally. I try to, in the best possible way, but I know I'm not invincible. Like, oh, now I'm not afraid, so I'm gonna do something crazy. I'm not a superhero. Right. Where I could walk in front of a bus and the bus rams into you and and mashes around you, but the feeling of whatever's going to happen is off. That weight is off my shoulders, per se.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think that oh, I'm sorry. Can you read that? Can you see it for yourself, Andrew? Or I'll read it.
Yeah. Some food cravings from their donor.
Yeah. I think did you kind of mention a little bit about that?
Yeah. I didn't have any really food cravings or anything like that. Just that because I was on prednisone, I ate a quarter-pound M&M bag, which they're pretty big.
Yeah.
Let's see. They're like, maybe like that. They're, those bags you have. Those, well, let me see. What's this? It'd be something like almost something like this. You know, you,
Yeah, I've
you
heard that the Prograf. Now I'm talking about one of my immunosuppressants. That prednisone is a beast, and I know because I turned it down. I was never on it. I refused to take it because
good.
I had heard way back before I got sick about how intensely that would make you eat and blow up. I knew a few people in the family that had been on it, and it just terrified me, the idea, of being on that. So they said, okay, and I never took it, but
You
yeah.
the face, you get what they call moon face. Like
Moon.
this area puffs up, and but you do at when the levels come down, when they walk you down. So all that moon face does go away, and if you did gain a little weight from prednisone, you'll shed it off. But
Mhm.
but when you're on it, you get those cravings, and I think that's the culprit of the food cravings people talk about. That's just my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's just coincidence too, that someone
Mhm.
might like this food, and after transplant, then they like that food. So, um, yeah,
Okay, so this is Jared's, I think, question. He said he's been prescribed prednisone when he had COVID to help with the symptoms.
yeah,
Just 3 days worth, though. Oh, you're fine,
yeah,
Jared.
yeah, yeah. Prednisone is good in the medical field because it can help with all the other stuff,
Yeah.
and it just depends on how much dosage. So after transplant, they started me at 50 milligrams, which when they give it to you, it's like your body reacts like, "Holy cow, what's happening?" But as you have it more and more, you get used to it. Your body gets used to it.
Mhm.
But right now, I'm at 5 milligrams,
Okay.
so it's a maintenance dose. But at the beginning too, you know, what happens is you get the shakes. So when you're trying to eat a bowl of soup or cereal, by the time you get it up here, you've shaken it out of the spoon already. You're
It's
like,
not funny, but it's funny.
it is funny because you get it up there and it's like, oh, gotta start all over again. So at
Which
that
I'm
point,
sure is frustrating.
so that time you just grab the bowl and just screw it. And
That's
hopefully it
funny.
doesn't spill and go down your shirt either.
Right.
But
Exactly. That's funny. Yeah. Well, you make it work. You do, man. You do what you gotta.
you do,
You
yeah,
gotta
you do the
do, and
things you gotta
you
do.
know,
So,
and that's what's. Hey, we do what we gotta do, and so that is funny. Yeah, that's hilarious. But I actually, this has been great, Andrew, and definitely appreciate the humor of the food on prednisone and everything. That was.
and that's the other thing is you gotta find, in times of being sick or something, you always gotta have some levity of the situations. I
You're
mean,
right.
if you don't, it just really doesn't help. But that's why, you know, like in the support groups, we laugh a lot,
Hmm.
because we talk about this stuff and
Hmm.
our stories and stuff like that. So,
Right.
but yeah,
That's so
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
you just have to laugh at that stuff because that was in the past, and you know,
Yeah.
yeah, laughing
It
is a
is
great
great
medicine.
medicine. And Jerry, could you
So,
put back up what Joy said again, please? Yeah. Oh, yeah. God has promised in His Word to give us a new heart, so true, and a new spirit. And she's saying He's gonna do it for you again. Yeah. Thanks, Joy.
Oh
I
yeah.
believe that too. I have no doubt about that. And my last question, real quick for you, Andrew, was just going to be, what would be the best advice that you would give to everyone regarding staying, heart healthy? Even though I'm not saying that was obviously the case with yours, but many people that fall into cardiovascular disease, congestive heart failure, it's a lot of times, oftentimes, perpetuated by a bad lifestyle, eating, not exercising. So what are your thoughts on that as a heart recipient?
Um, I would tell people to, probably, I don't know, never too, the year, never too late, but, sometimes it could, but, to start eating healthy, make right choices, um, listen to your doctors, always listen to your doctors. They have always the best advice because they see these things every day in and out, and that's what they're trying to push to us. So, like waiting on the transplant list, they want me to eat healthy. Um, so stay away from very fatty foods and, watch the carbs and all that stuff. So the heart, as it's getting weaker, isn't getting overtaxed too much. Um, but yeah, the healthier lifestyle, the better for your heart. And but like for me, what happened to my heart was a virus went in, did its damage, and left. And I think it was called myocarditis, I think it was, or cardiopathy, something like one of those two. I forget. But yeah, you know, those things happen. Viruses, you know, do their stuff, and that's in our world. We do the best we can to stay clean and healthy, but you know it just takes one little virus, and like right now with COVID-19, that being a virus, um, that's what we're seeing. When people are getting sick. So, but yeah, for COVID-19, I got both of my shots, and so just listen to your doctors. I have my team tells me this or that. We're gonna have you on this drug, take you off of this drug. So, um, from being in the Navy, I'm used to taking orders. So when they say something, I do it, and and that helps everything around to work better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. You are so right about that. And I think the only thing I would add to that, and this is really important for all of us, even us, our transplant family, transplant warriors out there, we have to be vigilant and diligent also in keeping our heart healthy. Those of us that are kidney recipients, because again, if you research your meds, a lot of these things can cause these type of problems post transplant. So that's why
Right.
I am a big advocate for working out, cardio, exercise. You've got to exercise and work that heart and get that heart rate up so that it continues to allow that blood to flow the way that it's supposed to. That is a big
Yeah.
thing. I will say this, and I was sharing this with friends. I don't make a big deal about weight. Now, the doctor's always going to stress weight loss, but everybody's not meant to be small, and everybody is not going to lose weight like that, especially when you're on these immunosuppressant drugs, because that's another side effect of them. They cause weight gain. So the best thing to do is level it off, level up, level it off. Just keep your body healthy. Eat, like Andrew said, eat healthy. Okay, and definitely get some exercise in there, and you'll be fine. Everything else is up to God at that point. And get that. Hey, you need to get that shot, because we've got this Delta strain out here, and I'm not going to start preaching about that, but
Yeah.
we do not want to end up on a ventilator. That's all I got to say. And the doctors are constantly talking to us in meetings about that. So Andrew, thank you so much. You have been such an inspiration in sharing your journey with all of us. Everybody's chiming in, thanking you and wishing you well on this next transplant, which we are all, going to be 100% behind you for that. I want to leave you and everyone with this one short scripture today, which I do on every one of my shows. And this is coming from, guys, Proverbs 4:23. And it's real simple. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. Okay. And that speaks 1,000 words. So
Yes.
guard your heart, take care of your heart. My grandfather used to say, take care of your car and it'll take care of you. Take care of that heart and it will take care of you. Right, Andrew?
Right. The heart is like the engine of your body.
Yes.
And and your brain is, the computer, of the car. And but yeah, everything is connected. The heart, the lungs, everything's connected. So when the heart's going down, it does affect all the other organs. And you know and that's why the doctors, watch you too, because if the heart gets real bad, it could put stress on the kidneys. you know so, and then once the transplant was done the first time around, and I had a better running engine, then everything else was much better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I agree.
and
Yeah. I agree.
it's the same way with the other organs. If your kidneys aren't working good, it can affect your heart. So everything's interconnected. So if one organ's having problem, it will affect all the other major organs.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was a great way to end that. The circle of life, the circle of the
Yeah.
body, this thing called life. We're all in it together and we're in it to win it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Andrew, for
You're
coming and
welcome.
sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I hope little Charlie, your dog, getting too mad you kicked him out the room. But much love to you, my brother. And I'm
All
going to
right.
definitely add you to my prayer list for your next heart. And you have a wonderful night. Thank you so much.
You too, and thank you everyone for the prayers and all the well wishes also.
Awesome. Bye, my friend.
Bye.
What an awesome guy, right, guys? I had the privilege and honor of seeing, we were volunteers together at Tampa General. We see all the transplant patients. He'd see everybody on the heart floors. So again, I just want to encourage you guys to do right by your heart. We can take the time to fill our hearts with everything else, the love, which is a great thing, the love and the, oh, my heart, and you got my heart, and you broke my heart, and forget all of that mess. Take care of your heart so that it will take care of you. Okay. And next time, we're going to talk nutrition. All right. So thank you guys so much again for joining Bella's Hope for Healing. I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, if you didn't do so already, please share this show, guys. Also, we are on YouTube also. So anyone who doesn't have a Facebook page, Shift them over to YouTube, guys. And got any questions, further questions or comments for me? You can always inbox me. And remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I. And ain't nothing you can do about it. See you guys later. Have a blessed night. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.